Welcome to the Week 3 Go-To session. This is the third of 4 such sessions we're hosting this month. Thanks to those who are in attendance. Thanks to those who are watching the video after the fact. This entire lecture is going to be devoted to APA. Remember last week when we were talking about the outline, I did go over some basics of APA, but I sort of made everyone a promise that as long as you gave it your best college try on the outline to follow APA, that would be fine, and I wouldn't take off many points because we're going to go into APA this week in some detail. And I'm going to open up a Microsoft Word document in just a second. So those of you who are watching the recording, you might want to do so. Actually, I'm going to close some stuff. I'm going to open up the blank document now. But first, real quickly, okay, so here we are. We're in week 3. And the same pattern, okay, so there's another weekly journal response. People are doing awesome with that. There's a final Achieve module. You only have these Achieve modules for the first 3 weeks. And yeah, the main activity this week is this guy here. I'm not going to go over this because it's pretty self-explanatory. You can read the instructions on your own, but the gist is you have to write an essay draft. You'll get feedback on your outline, and then you'll address things that need to be fixed and carry it over to the essay draft. And the essay draft is exactly how it sounds. We've been talking about it all month. We're working toward a thesis-driven 5-paragraph essay. So as long as you have a solid thesis and hopefully your outline is in solid shape, right? So your thesis has 3 discussion points. Each of those gets discussed in a separate body paragraph. You should be good to go. You just have to fill things out. Okay, just a couple reminders. Yeah, you have a little thing here about how long it should be, between 700 and 1,400 words. I'd say most people don't get anywhere near 1,400 words. I think I mentioned last week my Jeep essay is 800 something words, closer to 900. You do have 2 examples, okay? You have, if you click on this link, you have a previous student's Diet Coke paper, and you have my Jeep essay. I've sent out the Jeep essay as an announcement, so maybe some of you already taken a look at it, but you do have 2 models. And by the way, I provide these models for a reason, because some people learn best when they just see what we're working toward. It's not that the lectures aren't helpful. It's not that the feedback isn't helpful, but sometimes it's not until they actually see an ad analysis essay that things truly click. So you do have 2 examples to study. Anyway, you can read through the rest of it on its own. But yeah, you're essentially writing an essay draft. But the essay does have to be in APA format. And APA and research account for 20 points, so 20% of the overall grade. So yeah, you don't want to lose like 10 points for not following APA format at all, or the majority of those 20 points for not following APA format or not having research. Okay, so yes, we're going to switch gears now. I don't have a presentation. There are no slides. This is literally going to be an explanation of APA. So here's my blank document. Here, let me close some of this stuff, like the video I was watching earlier. This, which is someone's paper. Maybe I should have had that closed before I started. Okay, we're good to go. So when we talk about APA, we're really talking about 3 things, okay? First is layout, which is the overall look of the document. So what's called the header, which is like the top inch of this page. There has to be a cover page. So there should be inserted page numbers, paragraphs, but paragraphs that are properly spaced. So yeah, you need to make sure that your paper looks correct. So here's the Jeep essay, right? So you're trying to make your paper look like this. And what I'm going to do is literally walk you through the steps. Okay, this might not be the sexiest lecture. It might not be, but it might be the most useful, because if anybody's feeling a little bit lost about APA, just follow the steps, okay, that I'm going to go over in this lecture. So first we're going to work on the header, which is the top inch of this page. If you're working on Microsoft Word, either for PC or Mac, it should be as simple as double clicking at the very top of the page and you're in. Now, if you're using some other program, like Pages, which is Apple's equivalent to Microsoft Word, you can still do these functions, but you're going to have to search around for how to do it. Same thing if you're using the free online version of Microsoft Word. If you go to Microsoft OneDrive, yeah, they have a whole suite of tools, all those Office tools that you can use for free. But I do believe that they're somewhat limited, or maybe they have all the tools, but you might actually have to do it the old-fashioned way, go into the menu instead of these shortcuts. But I'm going to assume that most of you should have access to a full version of Microsoft Word. So again, to get into the header, we just double-click. Excuse me. And we have to type the words running head. Note that we capitalize the R in running, but not the H in head, colon. And then in all caps, the title of your paper goes here. So I'll just put a placeholder title. Okay, so English paper title goes here. Obviously, you'll have a more appropriate title. So the title of my GEEP essay is Animal Logic. And so here it is, running ahead. Okay, all caps. If you're either following along now or following along at home, I strongly recommend going ahead and right now and copying this. And I'll explain why. I've been doing this for months, over a year, and I have no idea why it likes to undo steps. So I know that this is going to disappear. So I'm copying it so I don't have to retype it again. And yeah, if you ever get away from like where you were, you just have to click on this tab, header footer. You can also get to the header footer by going to insert. I thought it was insert. Maybe it's view. Okay, view header footer. Okay, so you can get in there either way. So, because here's what we need to do. We need to have this information look one way here on the very first page, the cover page, but the words running head will disappear on all subsequent pages. So if we look at the GEEP essay, you can see the words running ahead appear right here, but on all remaining pages, the words running head disappear. Because that's what the words running head means. It's like an announcement. Announcement. This will be the running title of the paper, but that announcement only needs to appear on the very first page. In order to do that, we have to click this little guy here, different first page. And yet every time I do it, it makes this disappear. So that's why I went ahead and copied it, okay? So, boom, it disappears. So I'll just stick it right back in there. We also have to insert page numbers. And you can do so here, or you can do it the old-fashioned way, insert page numbers. And we do want it to appear on the first page. And we do want it to appear in the top right corner. Okay, so you get this little visual showing you where it's going to appear. And when I click OK, usually it makes something disappear again. Right, or actually the page number didn't even show up. But if I click different first page again, it should come back. There we go. Okay, so you have to redo steps a couple times. Actually, we're going to have to fix something else later that's going to make things disappear. But okay, for now, we have this looking correct. We're not done. The entire paper, okay, from top to bottom, from the header, through the cover page, through the essay itself, down through the references page, has to be in Times New Roman 12-point font. The header is not automatically set up in that font, so we have to change it. So I'm going to go to the Home tab, because this gives me my general options, like font. I'll just highlight everything. And yeah, change it to Times New Roman 12-point. Okay. And that's it. We've got the header, we've got the inserted page number, and we're good to go. We just have to click out of here to get out of the header, and we can continue with the cover page. Now, in the center of the page, and you can just eyeball it, so horizontally and vertically, we need to center certain information. And I would recommend at this stage, so I'm going to click the center tool, I recommend at this stage also setting up spacing. The entire document also needs to be double spaced, and that includes the cover page. So I'm going to go ahead and change 1.0 to 2.0 for double spacing. And we need three things here. We need the title of your paper. This time it is not in all caps, but we do capitalize important words. So if a tiny word like and appears, we wouldn't capitalize it, or the, okay? But we do follow standard capitalization rules for titles. We also have to, again, the entire document needs to be in Times New Roman. So it's super annoying that we have to do this twice for the header and the text of the essay, but once we get it set up, we're good to go. Okay? And we're already set up with double spacing, so I just had to hit enter once, and your name goes here. Okay? In the Jeep example, I tell a little joke, right? Title of the paper, written by Jane, a student. Okay. Uh, you don't have to include a middle initial. I see that a lot, but no, you don't have to include a middle initial. You just need to put your name and finally the university or organization you're associated with. In this case, you are at Full Sail University. Okay. And again, we just eyeball things. So it looks like this needs to be pushed down a little bit more. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I mean, I don't know if it belongs there or there. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to notice. Just make sure that it's kind of in the center. Okay. And then we're going to put our cursor right after the final word here. And we are going to hit enter or return until we get to the brand new line of a new page. As soon as we get to that very first line of a new page, we stop. So almost there, almost there, almost there. One more, stop. Okay. So at the tippy top of the brand new page, we again center our title. And notice it's not bolded, it's not underlined, it's not italicized, it's not in some larger font. The beauty of APA is that it's consistent and simple. Okay, so yeah, you don't add flourishes. It might look plain to your eyes, but actually it looks professional to most people's eyes when you see a paper that looks like this. Okay, when it looks consistently the same throughout the entire document. So resist that urge to kind of make it look pretty or make it look fancy. Okay, so here's our title, centered. We hit enter just once, okay? Just once, not 2 times, not 3 times, just once. And we can begin typing our paper. So we begin on the left. We hit the tab key on the left of your keyboard to indent, and you can start typing your paper. Okay, so I'm going to copy this because I want to fill up a whole bunch of space. By the way, when you get to the end of a sentence and you type period, you hit your spacebar twice. 1, 2, sentence. 1, 2, sentence. Okay. Actually, I want to fill up even more space. I'm going to take all of this. By the way, this might seem like common sense to people, but if you have double spacing set up, the computer program will automatically wrap around to a new line. But if you try to single space and manually force it to be double spaced, it creates all sorts of problems because the program doesn't know what you're doing. It tries to think that you're beginning a brand new paragraph, and so it will, for example, force the first letter on a new line to be capitalized. But you can avoid all that if you just double space from the get-go. So, okay, let me fill in a bunch more space. Oops, went too far there. Okay. So let me create something that kind of looks like an introduction. Okay, let's say that's an introduction paragraph. Now I'm going to copy all this because I want to fill up huge chunks of space. When you reach the end of a paragraph, okay, so this is the end of the paragraph, you hit enter just once, not twice, not 3 times, and you keep going. Because here's what sometimes I see. Students do things like this. They put an extra space here, they put an extra space maybe here at the top. They put an extra space between paragraphs. And no, don't do that. By the way, open up a novel sometime. Like if you have a Harry Potter book or a Twilight book, you don't see extra space between paragraphs. So again, here's the Jeep essay. I mean, maybe to your eyes, this looks all scrunched together, but it's not. Okay? This is actually pretty standard, whether it's MLA or APA, double spacing a document and having, yeah, just one hit of the enter key between paragraphs is the norm. So this is what you're striving for. Okay, are people following along with me pretty easily so far? I'm going to fill up a bunch of space to pretend that I'm getting near the end of the document. So indent. Always the first line of a new paragraph is indented. Okay. So indent, and let's imagine we are getting near the end of the paper, right? Because this is what, yeah, this would be the realistic end of the paper. We're on page 3. Can I fit one more in there? No, actually, I'll take that one away. Okay, so let's say your paper ends here, okay? Kind of near the bottom of page 4. Whenever your paper ends, same thing. Keep hitting enter until you reach the brand new line of a new page, okay? And as soon as you get there, you stop. So we're almost there, almost there. Stop. And again, we center the word references. And we don't bold it, we don't italicize it, we don't put a colon after it, we don't call it works cited, we don't call it bibliography, we don't call it sources. It's just the simple word references. Okay. Again, that's the beauty of APA. Simple, straightforward, consistent. Now, if you've been following along so far, yeah, this is all you need to make your paper look the right way. Okay. So yeah, if you've been following along, you can just replace his text with your own text. We do need to fix one thing, which is, okay, so we've got running head here, but it's supposed to disappear on all subsequent pages. And look, the page numbers are not appearing on every page either. If you can't get this to work and the words running ahead appear everywhere, that's okay. But if you do some of the steps a couple times, you will get it to stick. So here I'm going to delete this. I'm again going to insert page numbers because for some reason they're not appearing on every page. Yes, I want it on the first page. Yes, I want it in the top right corner. And I'm going to cross my fingers because, okay, here it looks good. The words running ahead have been removed. We have a page number. Same thing on page 3. And here, here the word, but it should come right back as soon as I click different first page. Boom. Okay. So yeah, you have to redo steps sometimes. There's probably a way to get it correct from the get-go, but I haven't been able to figure it out. But yeah, doing steps and clicking those boxes, you'll eventually get it to look like this. Okay, so yeah, layout, we're done. This is how it needs to look. Now, there are 2 other aspects we have to cover: in-text citations and references. So I'm going to create some in-text citations in real time, because I think this is the most confusing aspect. I didn't really get into it last week, but I am this week. Okay, so I have already open, although I think I need to sign in, Full Sail Connect. And what I'm going to do is try to find that same article I found last week, the one about Call of Duty from Billboard magazine. So let me bring up that same article. So I'm going to go to the library, research databases. It was as part of the EBSCO-host series of databases. Just select all of them, click continue, and Call of Duty Gimme Shelter. Okay. Remember I talked last week about how research will not be this fast, that it took me 4 hours or more to find my 6 sources. And yeah, where's my cheap essay? So here's my references page. And yeah, you can see I have 6 sources. You don't need to have me 6 sources. You only need 3. Jason says it took him 2 hours to find the ones he got. Okay, good. Yeah, it should take some time, right? Because some of this stuff is not going to be useful. So you have to find useful information. I ended up finding 6 things. You just need 3. And one of them has been given to you if you want to use it. That video on pathos, ethos, logos, and advertising. I mentioned in the second lecture that, yes, please do something more interesting with it than simply tell me that pathos is the appeal to emotion. Because you could have said that without referring to research. But I didn't even use that video because I don't know. I didn't feel like using it. I found 6 sources that work better. But you just need 3. Okay. So here's that article. Okay. Gimme Sales, written by Ann Donahue in Billboard magazine. And remember last week I said that, okay, it's a short piece and it certainly doesn't answer the question why the ad uses this song. Yes, it's a famous song. It's a famous classic rock song. It's upbeat and energetic, but the ad could have used any upbeat, energetic song. Why this song? This article doesn't answer that. But I did mention that this information here could be sort of like secondary research because it does seem to be evidence that this guy, Tim Riley from Activision, went to pretty long lengths to get permission to use this song. Okay? So it doesn't answer why this song is appropriate, but it definitely makes it clear that Activision wanted this song, not just any song, this song. Now, there are two options, okay? We can paraphrase information, which means saying things completely in our words. So, no, you cannot just change an occasional word. Like, according to Activision Vice President of Music Affairs Tim Riley. By the way, there's really no other way to say that. So that wouldn't be plagiarism. Okay, this is the guy's name, this is his title. Uh, but changing scoring to obtaining, Gimme Shelter for the ad was no small accomplishment. If you're basically using the same language but only changing a few words here and there, that's a problem. You need to say things entirely in your own words. But because this information comes from somewhere else, you still need to cite it. Now, I'm already going to tell you that the best option here is to paraphrase. Uh, there's not really quote-worthy information here. Also, resist the temptation to do this, to just grab this whole paragraph and say, wow, this says things better than I ever could. There are two problems with that. First of all, any quotation that is over 40 words needs to be put in block format. It's not a difficult format, but I'm not going to cover it because I don't think you should be using any quotes that are over 40 words. Just eyeballing this is probably 60 to 80 words. And the other problem is that you're essentially finding a huge chunk of information that is speaking for you. And that's not how research works. You're supposed to be finding research mostly in the form of shorter quotations that help support your ideas, not the other way around, where your ideas are helping support the research. There are times where absolutely a very long quote would be appropriate, but those are in situations where it is crucial for the reader to digest this long piece of information. For example, a long passage from a book, specifically because you're going to do something with that passage. You're going to be in dialogue with that passage. And so it's very important that the reader has considered that passage before you discuss it. But that's not what happens when students take a huge chunk of information and just drop it in their paper. So the first thing you have to decide is, am I going to paraphrase or am I going to take a direct quote? I think this information works best as a paraphrase because the general information seems to be that this guy went to great lengths to get permission to use this song. So that's what I'm going to do. First, I'm going to show how to do a paraphrase. Excuse me. So let's imagine, okay, let's imagine that this paragraph here is the paragraph on the Call of Duty ad's choice of music. Now, here's where things get even more confusing because it's sort of like choose your own adventure. First, you have to decide, am I paraphrasing or am I going to directly quote? And then second, you have to decide, am I going to mention the author's name in my actual sentence or not? So I'm going to show both ways to do this for a paraphrase. Okay, so yes, we could mention the author's name in our sentence. I could write something like, according to Anne Donahue of Billboard magazine. But if you mention the author's name in your sentence, it's just a rule. You have to put the year of the publication in parentheses. That author's name appears in your sentence, boom, a year has to appear. Okay, so according to Anne Donahue, 2010 of Billboard magazine, and now I'm going to state things in my own words. Okay, the vice president of music affairs for Activision flew to New York to meet with the rights holders of Gimme Shelter in order to use the song in the ad. Okay, so that's the gist of it. I could actually include more information because there's also that detail about how the band members were allowed to see an early edit of the ad. So, it looks like I misspelled Activision. Activision. So I could slide in that information too. So according to Ann Donahue, 2010 of Billboard magazine, the vice president of music affairs for Activision flew to New York to meet with the rights holders of "Gimme Shelter" in order to use the song in the ad, even allowing the Rolling Stones themselves to see an early version of the commercial. Okay. By the way, I would work on making it more concise but right now I'm just spitting it all out. And let me highlight this so you can see it more clearly. I'm done. That's it. Okay. For a paraphrase, we just need an author's last name and a year. But you don't have to mention the author's name in your sentence. And this is a little bit difficult to explain. You sort of have to ask yourself, is it worth mentioning the author's name? Or the author's name and maybe a brief description of who they are, in this case of Billboard magazine. For Ann Donahue, I don't know, maybe it feels like it adds weight because we do recognize that Billboard magazine is an important industry-specific magazine in the music field. Mentioning her name kind of makes sense. But if it's John Smith of, I don't know, I'm trying to make up the name of either a lame website, although you wouldn't use the lame website. But you know what I mean. If it's like someone who's not really well known, just a general low-level staff writer, maybe for not a publication that exactly jumps out at people. Anyway, I'm trying to say make that decision for yourself. But I don't have to mention the author. I could just find my own natural way to say, for example, according to Billboard magazine, right? Still reads cleanly. According to Billboard magazine, the vice president of music affairs, blah, blah, blah. If I do this, if I do not mention the author's name in my sentence, I save it for the end. Okay. Parentheses, author's last. I hate this keyboard. Really, these new Macs, they have like paper thin keyboards, and I just cannot get my fingers to Donahue, author's last name, comma, space, and then the year. Okay. So author's last name, year. That's it. Do people understand? Can you see the differences between the two? So I can use the author's name in the sentence. If I do so, a year appears immediately. Or I can find my own way to deliver the information and just save it for the end. Now, I want you to keep this in mind because the exact same rules apply for direct quotations. The only difference is that direct quotations require an additional piece of information, which is a page or a paragraph number. So let me show a direct quote. Like I said, I think that paraphrasing works best here, but I'm going to go ahead and grab this section here. And by the way, you can do that. Sometimes people feel like I have to take all of it or none of it. No, you can take just one sentence. You can take a part of a sentence. You have to make sure that it's naturally incorporated into your own writing. But you don't have to grab everything. So let me get rid of this, okay? Actually, let me go back to the way we had it. Okay, so we could do the same thing. According to Ann Donahue, 2010, of Billboard magazine, the vice president of music affairs for Activision flew to New York to meet with the rights holders of "Gimme Shelter" in order to use this song in an ad. And here I'll use a quote. And, quote, it always does this every month. Here, let me fix this real quickly. Okay, so this needs to be double spaced. And clicking on the match destination formatting thing doesn't fix it. So I have to actually go in and... Okay, there we go. And let me highlight it all so you can see it really clearly. So the exact same thing. Here I've mentioned the author's name in my sentence, so the year immediately has to appear. And here's my quotation. And it fits, right? I'm not going to read the whole thing, but according to Donahue of Billboard magazine, the vice president, blah, 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 in order to use the song in the ad, comma, and, quote, Actually, I didn't grab all of it. I also needed this part. Sorry about that. Oh, screw you. You know what? For the first time in history. Okay. So here's my quotation taken directly from the piece. And yes, it fits within the overall statement. In some ways, this is a mixture of a paraphrase, okay, the first half, and then in the second half, I use a direct quote. And, quote, for the first time in history, it allowed another company to make edits to the ad itself in order to obtain approval from the band members as well. So we have an author's name, we have a year. At the end of the quote, we just need a page or paragraph number. Now, some sources will have traditional page numbers. Typically, the PDF versions of an article you find through the library database, because those PDFs are exact reproductions of the magazine's pages. Yeah, there'll be actual page numbers. Here, though, it's just a one-page document, so we count the paragraphs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The quotation comes from paragraph 5. So the abbreviation is lowercase para period space 5. And notice the period goes at the end of the citation because this is the true end of the sentence. It does not go here because if I do that, that means technically we have a new sentence beginning, parentheses, paragraph 5, you can start, blah, blah, blah. That, of course, doesn't make any sense. So no, the punctuation always goes at the true end of the sentence, which is when the citation ends. Okay, so yeah, it's the exact same thing as the paraphrase. We just have to include this extra bit of information. Now, we can also find our own natural way to lead into this information without mentioning the author's name. Okay, so I could just say, according to Billboard magazine, and then everything remains the same, including my quotation. And at the end, author's last name, Donahue, comma, space, year of publication, 2010, comma, space, page or paragraph number. Now, if it's a page number, the abbreviation is just lowercase p, and then whatever the page number is, 5 or 552 or page 527. Okay, so yeah, in this case it was page 5. Is this still making sense? Because these are the things that kind of confuse students, because first you have to decide, am I going to quote, am I going to paraphrase? And then you have to decide, am I going to use the author's name and year in my actual sentence, or am I going to save it all for the end? And sometimes students mix the various forms. Or they reduce it to, they just drop in author's name, year, as if that's all that's needed all the time. And no, for quotations, you actually need that extra piece of information. So, and you have the Jeep essay, and the Jeep essay has examples of all the forms. So, for example, actually in the very first paragraph, okay, here's an example where I do mention the author's name in my sentence. Engineering and technology reporter Richard Truitt, 2016, proclaimed Jeep, quote, the most copied brand of American vehicles, end quote. After the quotation, I include page or paragraph number. Elsewhere, yeah, like here, for instance, I don't mention the authors by name because I just don't think that these two guys, Chapman and Cousins, who have written, I think, pretty nice general pieces about color theory, but it's for a website, and a website that nobody's heard of. So yeah, why would I highlight them by name? So in this case, I just choose to reference the information. Here it's a very short quote that I fold into my overall sentence. But since it's a quotation, and I haven't already mentioned the author's name in my sentence, parentheses, Chapman, 2010, paragraph 1. And same thing, the sentence actually continues. And while these colors may indeed be largely relegated to backdrop, comma, quote, neutrals and browns are also the epitome of nature, end quote. And then there's my citation. So yeah, if you go through the entire example here, you know, here's another instance where I do not mention the author's name in my sentence. So the entire citation is saved for after the quotation. Later, there's an example of a paraphrase. So GM Fenster, 1991, writes that the Jeep, a wartime American creation, was valued by soldiers for its versatility. That information comes from a very specific article, but I'm saying it in my own words, but I'm giving Fenster credit. And this is immediately followed by an example where, yeah, I name the author, so a year immediately appears, then there's a quotation, and so at the end there's a page or paragraph number. So if you ever get confused, either study the examples in the Jeep essay, or the Diet Coke essay, or go to projectapa.info and go to in-text citations, the very first tab, and you can get reminders of how this works. So the two ways to incorporate a quotation: mention the author's name in your sentence or not, and saving for the end. Two formats to handle a paraphrase: mention the author's name in your sentence or not, and saving it for the end. Okay, so you do have all these examples you can turn to. Jason says something, personally I would rather do both so I can use what I need where I need it. Yeah, I forget when you made that comment, so I'm not sure what you're referring to when you said you would rather do both. I don't know if you meant both, mention the author's name in the sentence and not, or paraphrase and quote. But yeah, you do have these options, okay? So that's in-text citations. I guess I should quickly mention what do you do in special circumstances? So, for example, what do you do if there is no author's name? Then use the first 2 to 3 words of the article title. So in this case, it is "Gimme Sales." And the first 2 to 3 words should appear in quotation marks. Or if you can imagine an article titled "The Road Ahead, the Road Behind." Again, use the first 2 to 3 words. So you could just say "the road," or the first 3 words, "the road ahead," placed in quotation marks. Okay. By the way, punctuation almost always goes inside quotation marks. There are rare examples where it doesn't, but I'm not going to go over those exceptions. What if there's no date? Then use the abbreviation N period, D period, which stands for no date. Okay, so you do have options for if there's no author, if there's no date. By the way, if there's no author, no date, it probably kind of makes no sense to put that information up here. It sort of belongs here. But there are times where, for example, you might say, according to Smith, no date. Okay, same thing. If you mention the author's name, a date, even if it's no date, has to appear in parentheses. Okay, so that's how you handle in-text citations. We do have to cover one more thing, which are references. I think references are easy because you don't have this choose your own adventure. First choose this, then choose that. Always two options. References are pretty, I think, straightforward. Yeah, do be careful if you go back and edit anything in your paper. It's probably going to bump things out of place. So, for example, here, the references do have to return to the top of the page, very tippy top, and be centered. But now we can start building our references page. And I'm going to show how to use the citation generator in the Full Sail library to help you with references. And I'm going to show in real time just how simple it is to create a reference, even if you don't have a citation generator. Okay, so here's the Ann Donahue article from Billboard. Yeah, there's a little citation tool here. So we're going to click on Cite. And they give you the APA citation. But here's the problem. It makes lots of mistakes. It loves to make mistakes. For example, author's name should not be in all caps. Sometimes it puts the article title in all caps. It's actually just added this information, retrieved from. You can take it if you want, but actually, yeah, you can take all of it, or I'm just going to take the main reference itself for right now. And then I'm going to explain why in just a second. Okay, so I'm going to copy this, because yeah, I can use it. I just got to fix things. Now, references, again, we hit enter just once after the word references. Not twice, not 3 times, and we begin on the left. And I'm going to paste in that reference. I'm going to click on the clipboard, match destination formatting, because it's going to put it in Times New Roman 12-point font. So yeah, now I got to fix things. Author's name should not be in all caps. Also, and you'll impress me a lot if you can remember this, because nobody remembers this. I shouldn't say no one. Maybe 2 or 3 students per month. The rules for capitalizing the name of an article or title is that you capitalize just as you would a regular sentence. So the G in gimme is capitalized, but not the S in sales. And if we look at the Jeep example, um, yeah, like if it looks odd that the title of the article is in lowercase, that's because I am capitalizing just as you would a regular sentence. The first letter after a colon gets capitalized. You typically wouldn't do that in like a regular sentence, but here it's because this is kind of like a secondary title. Um, but yeah, everything else lowercase. Same thing here. Okay. Same thing here. And the reason why Jeep isn't capitalized is because here Jeep is being referred to as the overall vehicle, not the specific brand. But with here, it is referring to the actual brand. With Jeep, see whatever you want to see. Or here, the industry's most copied brand. Now, if a word appears in the title, like, I don't know, the day of a week, then yes, you would capitalize it because you would capitalize that anyway. Okay. So yeah, you'll impress me a lot if you can remember that very nitpicky rule that we capitalize titles just as we would a regular sentence. Then there's a publication, which is italicized. And finally, we just need a retrieve from line. Now, the reason I didn't grab this here, and if you do, I won't, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. But actually, it's much simpler than that. You can just put the name of the database. In this case, it's Business Source Complete. And you can always find that information because it's included, like right here. Okay. So yeah, if you want to use the citation generator and it gives you the retrieve from line, I won't make a big deal about it. But yeah, you can also just real simply put the name of the database. Now, regular paragraphs, as I said, the first line of a new paragraph is indented, but all other lines are not. On the references page, it's the opposite. The first line of an entry is not indented, but if it goes to a second or third or fourth line, those lines do get indented. And so I'm just going to put my cursor and drag the bottom half of this hourglass, half an inch, and it will remember this and apply it to the rest of the references. So I can hit enter. Oops. And yeah, it already knows what to do. Okay, so if you find an article through the library database, it is really as simple as grabbing that APA citation and fixing the mistakes that it makes. But let's say you find something online. So I've already done a search for Call of Duty Black Ops. I'm just going to grab this here. Don't know the quality of the article. Don't care. I'll just choose it because it's convenient. Okay. It's also from Billboard, a different piece. But look, we have everything we need. We've got an author's name. We have a date. We have a title for the piece. And so, yeah, I can just create this in real time. Okay, so author's last name. By the way, they should be arranged alphabetically. So B comes before D. So Bruno, Bruno, comma, A for Anthony, period. Okay. After every section, there needs a period. Period. After the date. Period. After the title. Period. I do see lots of students leave that out. So, okay, period, space, and then in parentheses, the date. Now, this is another nitpicky rule. If you can remember it, great. If you don't, I'm not really going to freak out about it. For things that are published infrequently, so maybe once a month or once a quarter, just a year is fine. But things that are published more often, like web material or newspaper material, it's better to put the fuller date. This is a little bit confusing because Billboard magazine here has only the year, but this is also from Billboard magazine. So yeah, I'll put the fuller date, but it's going to look a little bit odd. Okay, so 2010, The year always comes first, and then the full name of the month, not abbreviated. What was it? November 19th. Okay. Period. Now the title of the article, which I've already copied, so let me grab that. And this is easy to fix. Just click on my clipboard, match destination formatting, boom. I do need to fix, like it insert an extra space there. This should not be bolded. So help me out here. What gets, this is the title of the article. What needs to be capitalized? What should not be capitalized? How about Rolling Stones? Should I make the S in Stones lowercase? Should I make the words in Call of Duty lowercase? Yeah, people might not. I lose people about this point in the lecture because APA is okay. I'll answer the question, right? So no. Yeah, good, Robert. Rolling Stones remains capitalized because it's a proper noun. Okay, it's the name of a band. But team up with? No, because we would not capitalize these words in a regular sentence. Call of Duty Black Ops? I mean, listen, within reason, we can fix things like the word of would not be capitalized. Um, okay, and the V in video game, right? Because we would not capitalize these words in a normal sentence. Now it looks like a normal sentence. And now we just need retrieved from. And here we can take just the URL. Okay, so the web address. Put it in there. Now, technically, if it comes from a website, we don't need an italicized name. If you want to put it, that's fine. So like Billboard or Forbes or CNN. Okay. But technically, if it's a website, we don't have to include that information. It's only for like, more serious publications like journals, newspapers, magazines, not strictly online material. Okay. Um, and yeah, I could do this all day. Like, for example, Smith, J, uh, let's say it's from 2012. Let's say it has a fuller date, October 13th. I'm just making things up, but the road ahead, the road behind. Let's say it's from Forbes, italicized, retrieved from blah, blah, blah.com. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, so I have APA rules memorized, but it really is that simple. Okay, and you have examples. Not only have I walked through the process, but you can study the examples on the G preferences page. You can go to projectap.info and go to the references page section. And by the way, I do not cover how to cite books or how to cite YouTube videos. Actually, YouTube is important. So I would recommend either going to projectapa.info or simply Googling how to cite YouTube APA. Because one of the results, EasyBib is pretty good, but you also get this awesome one where it's the official blog of APA, like the organization, and it shows you. Okay. So here's an example. Basically, it follows all the same rules, exact same rules. It's just you have to put in this little bracket video file. Because if the source, the title is not labeled, we're going to assume it's a textual source. Also, the article or source title also gets italicized because videos are italicized. By the way, and I'm going to end with this. Uh, if you're ever curious about when you should italicize things and when you should put things in quotation marks, this is for the like text of your actual essay. Because on the references page, we don't put articles in quotation marks. But if it were to appear in your actual essay, okay, here's the thing. Big things or whole things get italicized. So this would include movies, books, magazines, newspapers, CDs, video games, TV shows, and smaller things or parts of those whole things get placed in quotation marks. So this would be like not an entire book, but a essay within the book, or a short story within a book, or an individual poem within a book, or an article in a magazine or a newspaper, or a song on a CD, or an episode from television. Okay, so for example, the song Shake It Off is from Taylor Swift's album 1989. Okay, so the song in quotation marks because it's part of a whole, that whole being the whole album, which is italicized. Or, and I'm revealing too much about myself here, but my favorite Star Trek The Next Generation episode is Inner Light. Okay, so the episode, quotation marks, because it's a part of the whole. In this case, the name of a television show. So if you keep that in mind, big things are italicized. Smaller things that are part of those bigger things, placed in quotation marks. And this is, again, for specifically in the text of your actual paper. One of the confusing things about APA is all those rules get thrown out the window on the references page. We do not put the article title in quotation marks, and we do not capitalize it. The way if it appears in the actual text of your essay, you do capitalize major words. Okay, but it's only on the references page that you have these goofy rules that completely fly in the face of what you would think you would do. But as long as you can remember those exceptions, you should be fine. Here, I'm going to go ahead and close this and this. Okay, so we've covered layout, in-text citations, references. Now is the time. Questions, comments, either about APA or anything about the class in general. Jason says he's waiting for feedback to see how his APA attempt went. Yeah, and I think I said it in the announcements. I don't know how many people read my announcements. But first of all, I was super happy with the worksheets. They were pretty much incredible. I've never given out so many A's and B's in my life, and I was happy to do so. So I'm anticipating, hopefully, more strong work on the outlines. So Jason, since I made that promise last week that I just want to see a solid attempt at APA. So yeah, maybe in your references, you got some small details here wrong. Maybe you didn't capitalize or decapitalized words like this. Or maybe you didn't indent here. Or maybe there's too much space between entries. But yeah, those aren't the things I care about. It's just, were you mostly following APA? Could I clearly see that you're trying to follow APA and do so with some care? If so, I'm not going to penalize very much. Star Trek Beyond was the best in the series. Yeah, I'm blanking. Star Trek Beyond, that was the most recent Star Trek film, right? Because the first one was just Star Trek. The second one was... See, I can't remember the name. I've seen all of them, though. I've seen them multiple times, the films. I'm just blanking on the actual names of them. Yeah, if you're good, if you're comfortable with what we've gone over in this session, you don't have to hang around. I thank you for showing up. And next week's going to be short, like half an hour tops, because next week is like wrap-up stuff. Yeah, this class moves fast, believe it or not. Next week, we're going to be talking about the final week's obligations. Oh, I was going to say that, yeah, like last week, you guys were awesome, not just in the quality of the worksheets, but in terms of handing it in. I've never had such huge turn-in rates. Final tally, because there were some people who handed in late, 64 worksheets. That's amazing. Like, those are huge totals. So yeah, it's going to take me time. I hope not to take as much time as I did last week, but I probably will need to go past the midnight deadline that we try to impose on ourselves, which would be Wednesday at midnight, because in theory this was supposed to be due Sunday at midnight, even though I extended the date. But obviously, I don't want to keep falling behind with the dates or keep extending things. Ultimately, I would like to catch up. So, yeah, I have a feeling that tomorrow I'll be burning the midnight oil, like quite literally, probably pulling an all nighter and trying to get them all finished by Thursday. Okay. You're welcome, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording because it doesn't seem like people have that many questions. So, to the people here and to the people watching at home, thank you very much. I'm going to stop the recording now.